Sometimes heroes don't wear capes, just grease-stained boots and dirty hands. 1 second changes everything, and fate don't always give you plans. It was one of those blistering hot days where the heat feels like it's sticking to your skin, and the air's heavy with the hum of engines tearing down the old state highway. I was elbow-deep under the hood of a beat-up Chevy that had seen better days, sweat rolling off my forehead and splashing on the dusty engine block. My garage sat just past the edge of Millstone, a tired little town most folks forgot about. Working here sure wasn't fancy, but it paid the bills. And truth is, it's all I ever really knew. Then I heard it. Tires screeched across the road, loud and sudden, followed by a sickening crunch that made my stomach drop. I looked up just in time to see a black sports car slam full speed into the guardrail. The front end folded like an empty soda can, and smoke came pouring from under the hood. My gut twisted when I saw the driver's side door mangled shut. I didn't stop to think. I just grabbed my toolbox and took off running across the blacktop, nearly getting clipped by a semi that blared its horn at me. My boots slid in the gravel as I reached the wreck. Inside, a woman sat frozen, fumbling at the door with shaky hands. Her long brown hair stuck to her face, streaked with tears and sweat. Our eyes locked, hers wide with fear. "Help me! I can't get out!" she cried, her voice trembling. "Hang on," I told her, yanking at the handle. Nothing. It was jammed solid. "Don't worry. I got you." The smell of fuel was thick in the air, sharp and dangerous. My heart was beaten out of my chest as I grabbed a crowbar and wedged it between the door and frame. I leaned in with all I had. Metal groaned and creaked, then popped. "Come on," I said, reaching in and pulling her gently from the wreck. She staggered out, grabbing my arm as her knees gave out. I caught her, steadying her weight. "You're hurt?" I said, seeing blood trailing down her forehead. "Here, sit down." I helped her to the curb. She was breathing fast, shallow. Her eyes darted to the car. "The car! It's gonna—" Before she could finish, the thing exploded behind us, a wall of heat hitting me like an oven blast. I turned, throwing my body over hers as flaming debris crackled in the air. She screamed, gripping my arm like it was the only thing keeping her here. "You're all right?" I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's over. You're safe now." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with relief, and something else, something deeper. "Thank you," she whispered. Before I could answer, sirens wailed through the distance, growing louder. An ambulance and a couple of cruisers rolled up, lights spinning like a carnival gone wrong. EMTs rushed over, but she wouldn't look away from me. "Wait," she said, reaching for my hand as they tried lifting her onto the stretcher. "What's your name?" "Wes," I replied, still trying to make sense of everything. "Wes Dalton." "I'm Ellie," she said softly. "Thank you, Wes, for everything." I watched them load her into the ambulance, my chest tight, heart still thumping in the back of my throat. I didn't know who she was or why that day had thrown us together, but I had a strange feeling. Like this wasn't the end of it. A week rolled by. Things at the garage went back to their slow rhythm. Same oil changes, same busted radiators. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get Ellie's face out of my head. Those eyes, the way she held on to me like I was the last solid thing in a world that just blew up around her. Then one evening, right as I was locking up, a black SUV rolled into the lot. It was shiny, new enough to make the rest of the place look like a junkyard. Out stepped a man in a tailored suit, the kind of guy who looked like he owned everything he walked past. His icy blue eyes swept across my shop like he didn't belong anywhere near it. "You Wes Dalton?" he asked, his voice sharp and confident. "That's me," I said, wiping grease off my hands with a shop rag. "Need something?" "You already did," he replied, reaching out his hand.
I'm Charles Bennett.
Ellie's father. I froze. The name hit like a freight train. Charles Bennett, the real estate tycoon whose name was always showing up in news headlines and business magazines. What the hell was he doing in my dusty little corner of the world? I shook his hand, still trying to wrap my head around it. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Bennett. I'm real glad Ellie's okay." "She told me what happened," he said, his stare cutting right through me. "You saved her life, Wes. That's not something I take lightly." "I just did what anyone would've," I muttered, feeling awkward. "You'd be surprised how many people wouldn't," he said, giving me the slightest nod of respect. And for a second, we both stood there in silence. Two men from different worlds, but somehow connected by what happened on that scorched highway. He looked me in the eye and said, "I came here to thank you face to face, and to offer you something." "Something?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Then the man, Charles Bennett, reached into his coat pocket and pulled out this sleek, black envelope. The thing looked expensive even before I touched it. Just holding it made me feel out of place. I took it slowly and flipped it open. Inside was a fancy card with gold lettering so shiny it practically glowed under the shop lights. "You're invited to a gala I'm hosting tomorrow evening," he said, matter of fact. "Ellie will be there. She asked me to make sure you were invited." I let out a nervous chuckle and held up my hands, still smudged with grease. "Don't think I'm the tux and caviar type." Charles smirked. "Kinda polite, but with a bite underneath it. "You'll fit in just fine, Wes. Trust me. And I believe you'll find it worth your while." Before I could get a word in, he turned to the driver behind him, gave a small nod, and the guy walked over holding a briefcase. Charles popped it open right there on my workbench. Stacks of cash. Neat, crisp, organized like it came straight from a bank vault. 50 grand, he said, like he was offering me a soda. "For the man who saved my daughter." My stomach turned, and my heartbeat picked up. I'd never seen that much money in one place before. It was more than I could ever hope to earn in 3, maybe 4 years working in that garage. Still, I didn't move. "I can't take this," I said finally, shaking my head. "I didn't help Ellie because I wanted something in return." He stared at me then, quiet for a second. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. Then, without a word, he snapped the case shut and gave it a gentle push toward me. "Call it a gesture," he said. "Take it, or don't. Either way, I'll see you tomorrow night." And just like that, he turned, climbed into that black SUV and rolled away, leaving me standing there alone in my grease-stained coveralls, next to $50,000 and an invitation to a world I'd never once pictured myself in. The following evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, trying to make sense of the reflection staring back at me. The suit I had on didn't fit quite right. I'd borrowed it from my cousin, but it'd have to do. I straightened the tie 3 times and still felt like I was wearing someone else's skin. I didn't know exactly why I said yes. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the way Charles had looked at me, like I was part of some puzzle he hadn't figured out yet. When I pulled up to the venue, I swear it looked like a castle lit up for a movie scene. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks, and the room buzzed with fancy talk and clinking glasses. Everyone there looked like they were born in a tux. I stuck out like a sore thumb, but I squared my shoulders, took a breath, and stepped inside anyway. "Wes." I turned and saw her, Ellie, moving through the crowd like a spotlight was following her. That green dress she wore shimmered when she walked, and her hair was swept up like she belonged on a red carpet. But what really hit me was the smile, real warm, like I was the only one in the room who mattered. "You made it," she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. "I was starting to think you wouldn't show." "Wasn't sure I should," I admitted. "Not exactly my kind of place." She smiled softer this time. "You're here. That's what matters." Before I could say another word, Charles showed up behind her, looking as put together as ever. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, all friendly-like. "Wes," he said, "glad you decided to come." "Thanks for the invite," I replied, my eyes drifting across the gold and velvet around us. "This is something else." "Welcome to my world," he said with a smirk. Then his tone shifted. "Now let's get to the real reason you're here." He guided me away from the noise, toward a quiet corner away from the champagne and laughter. As soon as we were out of earshot of the others, the easy charm faded from his face. What replaced it? Well, it was sharp, cold, like he was done being polite. "I appreciate what you did for Ellie," he started, voice low and serious. "But I gotta ask, what's your angle?" I blinked. "My angle?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, what are you after?" "Nothing," I said, a little sharper than I meant to. "I did what I did because it was the right thing to do." "That's what you keep saying," he replied, his eyes narrowing a bit. "But guys like you don't end up around people like us, unless there's something they're hoping to get." A spark lit up in my chest, hot and fast. "I'm not after anything," I said flatly, meeting Charles Bennett's gaze. Didn't even know who she was when I dragged her out of that car. He stared at me, long and hard, like he was digging through my words for the truth. Finally, he gave a small nod, just enough to let me know he believed me or at least wanted to. "All right," he said. "Fair enough. But let me give you some advice." He leaned in slightly. "This world, it's crawling with folks who'll try to use you, twist your kindness into something else. You best keep your guard up." I left the gala that night with a brain full of noise and a gut that wouldn't settle. His words followed me all the way to the lot where I parked my old truck. Way out back, away from all the glitter and suits. Just as I reached for the handle, I heard footsteps behind me. "Wes Dalton," a voice drawled. I turned around slow. There was a man leaning against a sleek black sedan like he owned the night. His suit was too sharp for someone who looked that mean, and the smirk on his face was anything but friendly. Two other guys stood behind him, rigid, still, eyes like ice. "Who's the skin?" I said, keeping my voice steady. He pushed off the car and started toward me. "Let's just say I represent some interested parties," he said, his tone slick. "You've stepped into a circle of power, Wes, and folks in that circle don't exactly love strangers poking around." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not poking anywhere. Just helped someone when they needed it." He chuckled, low and dry. "That's the funny thing about trouble. It don't care if you're looking for it." The air tightened like a pulled rope. Every instinct in me screamed to stay calm, but I could feel the muscles in my arms tensing. "If this is some kind of threat," I said, voice cold, "save your breath. I don't want nothing to do with your world." "Good," he said, stepping back, that crooked smile never leaving. "Then stay out of it." They got in the car and rolled off, taillights fading into the dark. I stood there for a minute, fists balled at my sides, jaw clenched tight. Whatever I was caught up in, it was clear walking away wouldn't be so simple. Next morning, I was back under the hood of a beat-up sedan, trying to shove the whole night out of my head. Then I heard tires crunching over the gravel, and I looked up. It was Ellie. She stepped out of a silver car, looking around like she half expected trouble to jump out at her. Her face was set, serious, but there was a flicker of worry behind her eyes. "Ellie?" I said, grabbing a rag to wipe the oil from my hands. "What brings you here?" "I needed to see you," she said, walking toward me. "It's important." I nodded toward the old wooden bench beside the garage. We sat down side by side. "What's going on?" She hesitated, fingers twisted together in her lap. "I overheard my dad last night," she said quietly. "He's worried. He thinks you might be in danger." I raised an eyebrow. "Danger? From who?" She shook her head. "I don't know exactly, but my father's made enemies over the years. Powerful ones. And they'd hurt anyone he cares about just to get to him." I let out a dry laugh. "Ellie, I'm just a small-town mechanic. Ain't nobody out there worried about me." She turned to face me, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me, Wes, and that makes you a target." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd never thought that doing the right thing could paint a bullseye on my back, but the fear in her eyes told me this was no exaggeration. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, keeping my tone gentle. "Stay close," she said, looking me dead in the eye. "And if anything happens, promise me you'll call." I nodded slowly, the weight of it settling on my shoulders. Didn't take long to see what she meant. That night, just as I was locking up the shop, I noticed a figure hanging around near the entrance. My pulse jumped. I stepped closer, cautious but ready. "Need something?" I called out. The guy stepped into the flickering overhead light. Big, rough-looking. A scar ran from his cheekbone to his jaw like someone had carved it in on purpose. He was holding a crowbar in one hand, and the grin on his face made my skin crawl. "Nice place you got here," he said, mocking. "Be a damn shame if something happened to it." Before I could say a word, the guy swung that crowbar, smashing the window of an old Buick parked near the shop. Glass flew everywhere. That sound, it lit something hot inside me. "Back off," I growled, my voice hard as steel. "You don't want to do this." But he just laughed, twirling the crowbar like it was a toy. "Oh, I think I really do." I didn't wait around to see what he'd do next. I grabbed the biggest wrench I could from my toolbox and charged forward. My body moved before my brain did, pure instinct. It was rough, quick, violent. By the time it was done, The guy was down on the gravel, groaning and clutching his side. The crowbar lay a few feet away. I stood over him, breathing hard. "Tell whoever sent you," I said coldly, "that I'm not scared. Not one damn bit." Next morning, I came in early to clean up the mess. That's when I saw it, taped to the garage door. Piece of paper. Sloppy handwriting. Just 5 words. "This is just the beginning." I stared at it, jaw tightening. Whoever they were, they weren't giving up. But neither was I. They thought they could scare me? They had no idea who they were messing with. Ellie's warning kept running through my head, and I knew I needed help. This was bigger than me. If I wanted to know who was behind this, I had to go straight to the ones in the middle of it all, the Bennetts. That night I called her. She picked up fast. I could hear the tension in her voice. "Wes, is everything okay?" "Not really," I told her. "One of your dad's rivals stopped by the garage last night, smashed up a car, tried to threaten me. Left a note behind, too." There was a pause on the line. Then I heard her suck in a sharp breath. "Wes, I'm so sorry. I told you this could happen. I'll talk to my dad. He'll figure something out." "No," I cut in. "I need to talk to him, face to face. If I'm stuck in this mess, I deserve to know what's going on." She was quiet for a second, then said, "All right, come to the house tomorrow. I'll make sure he's there." The next day, I found myself at the gates of the Bennett's estate. Up close, the place was massive. Immaculate gardens, gates tall as trees. It looked more like a palace than a home. A security guy let me through after Ellie gave the word. I was led into this big, wood-paneled study that smelled like cigars and old money. Charles Bennett stood when I walked in, eyes steady on mine. "Wes," he said, "heard you've had a rough couple of days." "You could say that," I replied, crossing my arms. "Mind telling me why I've got people swinging crowbars at me?" He motioned for me to sit. I didn't. He let out a sigh, leaning back on the edge of his desk. "I hoped this wouldn't involve you, but my enemies don't care what I hope." "Who are they?" I asked, voice sharp. "And what the hell do they want?" "They're men I used to do business with," he said. "Ones I exposed, liars, thieves. I ruined them, and they've been looking for payback ever since." "And now I'm part of that?" I snapped. "Because I happened to save your daughter?" He nodded, jaw tight. "You're close to us now. That makes you a threat in their eyes, someone they can hurt to make a point." I clenched my fists. My life was getting torn up because I stopped to help someone. Made me sick to think about it. "So what do I do?" I asked. "Sit around and wait for him to show up again?" "No," Charles said, his voice firmer now. "You're not alone in this. I'll make sure you're protected." "Protected?" I repeated. "You think you can just throw some guards around me and that's it? You gonna keep me locked up in your mansion?" His eyes narrowed, hard as stone. "I've got people, Wes. Good ones. They'll make sure no one gets near you." I wasn't sure I believed him. Not entirely. But the truth was, I didn't have a lot of other choices. "All right," I said finally. "But if this gets worse, I'm handling it my way." For the next few days, I tried to keep things normal. Fixed engines, patched tires, kept my head down. But it wasn't the same. I knew eyes were on me. Discreet guys in black SUVs, parked just far enough not to scare folks, but close enough to see everything. I didn't like being watched, even if they were there to help. Made my skin crawl. But at night, when the wind blew just right and the silence got too thick, I felt better knowing someone was nearby. And then there was Ellie. She came by often, usually with a cup of coffee in hand and a tired smile on her face. She didn't talk much about the danger, but just having her around helped. It reminded me that somewhere underneath all the chaos, something real had started between us. She'd swing by the shop and sit on that old wooden bench out front, watching me work like it was the most natural thing in the world. We'd talk about anything, sometimes nothing at all. And in those quiet moments, I forgot just how much heat was breathing down our necks. Truth be told, I started looking forward to her visits more than I ever planned to. One evening, just as the sun dipped low behind the trees, Ellie turned to me with that serious look I was learning to recognize. "Wes, why didn't you take the money my father offered you?" I shrugged, wiping my hands on a greasy rag. "Because I didn't save you for a paycheck. Just didn't feel right." She gave me a soft smile, like she already knew the answer. "You're one of the good ones, you know that?" "Maybe," I muttered, glancing over at her. "Or maybe I'm just real damn stubborn." Her laugh eased the knot in my chest for half a second, until we heard tires screech down the road. A blacked-out car flew past the garage, windows tinted darker than night. I didn't see who was inside, but my gut twisted hard. Something wasn't right. That night, sleep wouldn't come easy. I tossed, turned, then came the knock. A hard one at the garage door. Jolted me upright. I grabbed the closest wrench and crept over, flipping on the outside light. A man I didn't recognize stood there, hands up in surrender. "Relax," he said, steady and too calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Then tell me who the hell you are," I said, keeping the wrench high. "Call me Ethan," he replied, stepping inside without permission. "I used to work for Charles Bennett. And now, I work for the people who want him gone." I gripped the wrench tighter. "So why are you standing in my shop instead of burning it down?" He looked me dead in the eye. "Because I don't like where this is heading. The people I work for, they're not just trying to shake you up. They're planning something big, dangerous. And I'm supposed to believe you care?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "You're just a guy who did the right thing," he said, calm as ever. "You don't deserve to be caught in the blast." His words set off a chain reaction in my brain. He laid it out. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. These folks wanted to destroy Charles Bennett's whole empire, and anyone close to him was fair game. That meant Ellie. And me. The next few days felt like a storm building. I could feel it in the air, tight and electric. Walking away, that ship had sailed. If I wanted to protect Ellie, protect myself, I had to be ready to fight. 2 nights later, they made their move. Power went out across the block. Whole street went black. I was working late in the garage, head under the hood, when I heard glass shatter. A Molotov hit the side of the building, flames crawling up the wall like snakes. "Damn it!" I grabbed the extinguisher and ran toward the fire, adrenaline kicking in fast. But that was just the start. I saw shadows moving outside, heard boots crunch gravel. I grabbed a tire iron and braced near the entrance. Then the door slammed open. 3 men rushed in, masks on, armed and ready. I didn't hesitate. I swung hard. One went down instantly, his body dropping with a sickening thud. But the others kept coming. One had a knife. That fight was rough. Dirty. Close. Every punch, every swing came from someplace deeper than fear, pure survival. I took hits. Landed some too. By the end, 2 were out cold, and the 3rd took off into the night. I was bloodied, bruised, but I was still standing. Not 2 minutes later, Ellie's car came flying into the lot. She jumped out, panic written all over her face. "Wes, what happened?" I leaned against the workbench, catching my breath. "Your dad's enemies," I panted. "They're done playing." The very next morning, I stormed into Charles Bennett's office. I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. "I've had it," I shouted, slamming both palms onto his polished desk. "You told me you'd protect me, and now I've got scorch marks on my building and blood on my shirt. What the hell are you doing about it?" He stood there quiet, the calm finally breaking in his eyes. "I underestimated them," he admitted, his voice lower than usual. "But I won't do it again." "You'd better not," I snapped, "because I'm done sitting around waiting for the next attack." Charles leaned forward, his face hardening with resolve. "Then we hit back." I blinked. "Come again. We go on the offensive," he said. "We take the fight to them. Hit 'em where it hurts." Charles looked me square in the eyes and said, "I know who's behind this. If you're ready to fight, I'll give you everything you need to take them down." I stood there, heart pounding. The thought of diving deeper into this mess made my stomach twist, but I was through running. "All right," I said, "but if we're doing this, we do it my way." Over the next week, things shifted fast. Charles put his resources into action, surveillance footage, inside contacts, and what felt like a small army of private security. Suddenly, we weren't just playing defense anymore, we had the upper hand. Ethan turned out to be more useful than I expected. Despite where he came from, he started feeding us real information, plans, hideouts, weak points. He said he wanted out of that life, and for now, I believed him. Our first strike hit them where it hurt. We intercepted a shipment. Guns meant for their crew. Gone. Then we outed one of their big money guys, leaving them scrambling for cash. Every blow we landed shook their foundation, but it also made them meaner, desperate. And then they hit back. Ellie was taken. I came back to the garage one evening and found a note taped to the door. Just 5 words. Come alone or she dies. The blood drained from my face. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't strategy anymore, this was personal. Charles tried to stop me from going. You walk in there alone, it could be a trap, he said. This is on me, I told him. I'm getting her back. The address was a rotting old warehouse just past the edge of town. I pulled up around midnight, armed with nothing but a crowbar and every ounce of will I had left. The place smelled like dust and danger. I stepped inside, and the shadows swallowed me up. In the center of the room stood a man I hadn't seen before. His eyes were cold, calculating. The kind that didn't blink when things got ugly. Behind him, Ellie was tied to a chair. Her eyes met mine, wide and terrified. Let her go, I said, stepping into the light. He smirked. Brave of you to come alone, he said. But bravery won't save her. Or you. Try me. And then it all broke loose. 3 of his guys rushed me, I didn't hesitate. The crowbar cracked bone as I fought like a man possessed. Every swing, every step forward. It was all for her. I heard Ellie scream. The leader had her by the throat, blade pressed to her skin. I charged him, knocking the knife loose, slamming him into the concrete with everything I had. He didn't get up. When it was over, I dropped to my knees, pulling her close. She was shaking but alive. Within minutes, red and blue lights lit up the sky. Charles's team had called it in. Cops poured in. The group was rounded up and cuffed. Their operation, crushed. Charles arrived not long after, breathless. His eyes landed on Ellie, safe in my arms, and for the first time, I saw something raw in him, gratitude. You saved her again, he said, voice thick. I don't know how to thank you. Just keep her safe, I told him. That's all I want. The weeks that followed felt like stepping out of a storm. The garage was patched up, the threats were gone, and for the first time in a long while the world felt still. Ellie kept coming by, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to sit beside me. And little by little, the cracks left by all that chaos started to close. One evening, we climbed onto the roof of the garage, watching the sunset paint the sky. She looked over at me, smiling soft. You know, Wes, you're not just some mechanic. I chuckled. Nah, I'm just a guy who looks out for the folks he cares about. She reached over, laced her fingers through mine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had something real, something worth fighting for, something worth staying for.